There's my microphone. Hi everybody, I see some of you are here already. I hope you liked that timer. Let me make sure everything's all set. Hi Christina, hi Deanne, hi Claire, hi Nico, hi Alyssa, hi Carla. Yeah, you are lucky you got there just in time. Hi Crystal, hey Heather, hi Michelle, hi Marilyn. All right, it's good to see everybody today. We are going to be talking about SOW-win, so that's really exciting. And I don't know if some of you maybe have noticed, but I haven't been super active in the group lately, and that is just because I'm really working hard on this enwitching challenge that I'm doing in November. So I am really excited about that, and it is a lot of work. But I think it's going to pay off, and I hope you all enjoy it. But that is just kind of my explanation for not commenting and being as active as I usually am. I've been trying to read all of your comments and make sure that I'm still seeing everything that you're all talking about. But if I see that a bunch of other people have already answered your question, I'm just kind of scanning it and moving on. So I hope you understand, but just know that in November, you're going to be seeing a lot more of me. You're going to be sick of me, so if you're missing me, like I've been missing you, I've been missing out on a lot of really interesting conversations. So if you've been missing me as well, then now you know the reason. I'm just going to pour myself a cup of tea so it cools down a little bit. It's still really hot, so all right. So I'm just going to get started. Again, we're talking about SOW-win today, and if you missed the Mabon video from September 21st, I think was the day that I did that video, the fall equinox video. I'm just going to go over a little bit again what the Wheel of the Year is in case you missed that. And maybe it's a review. You're happy to have a review if you didn't miss it. So basically the Wheel of the Year is a way for witches to follow the solar cycle. So the cycle of really, it's the Earth going around the sun, but it appears as if the sun is changing position to us from our position here on Earth. So, and how the seasons change. And this is manifested differently based on where you live on the Earth. Some people see a lot more dramatic season changes than other people, like me here in Florida. But wherever you live, there is some sort of change happening around you. Even if you live right on the equator, there's changes between the monsoon season versus the dry season. So the Earth has different changes based on the position where it is around the sun. And this is reflected in the Wheel of the Year. And so I have this little thing. This was given to me by my sister and my sister-in-law, and it has each of the different sabbats, and you turn it, so it's called the turning of the year. So now we have SOW-win at the top. We're about to turn the wheel so that SOW-win's at the top, but it also has these astrological correspondences. I don't know if you can see that, but each of the seasons has 3 different astrological signs, the zodiac signs happening within it. So between Mabon and Yule, SOW-win is at the peak, and there are 3 different signs that we pass through in that season. So we have Libra and Scorpio and Sagittarius, and so I just change it as the sun moves into the new sign. So it's had Scorpio and SOW-win at the top since couple days ago when we moved into Scorpio, or when the sun moved into Scorpio. But anyway, so this is kind of what it looks like. It's a circular calendar as you move through the year. And, then we get to Yule, and then we get to Imbolg, and so on and so forth. If you are on the southern hemisphere, we are shifting into Bealtaine. And the interesting thing, though, is that the astrological the zodiac signs are the same as what we see in the northern hemisphere still, so that would be a little bit different. But anyway, so we still have the sun in Scorpio, but you would just be celebrating Bealtaine. And I have a video on YouTube, actually, that I filmed last April, I guess, before Bealtaine. So if you are in the southern hemisphere, I'll be sure to link to that video so that you can watch it and learn about the next Sabbat in your area. But I do hope you watch this one and get prepared for 6 months from now when you would get to celebrate SOW-win. So anyway, that's kind of the Wheel of the Year, how it goes. I have these books as well. I highly recommend them. I don't know if you can read it. The purple is kind of dark, but it's printed by Llewellyn, and it's there's one for each of the sabbats. So this one is for Samhain, and I talked about it in the Mabon video. So again, sorry if this is a repeat, but I really, really like them. They have all sorts of spells and crafts and recipes as well, different things to do depending on the season. So about halfway between each of the sabbats, between each of the holidays, I switch books and I just have it out. And then I can just look it up. Anytime I have a little time, I can say, oh, what do I want to do right now? Oh, I could make sugar skull cookies and do that. So anyway, if you're looking for resources on celebration ideas and crafts and all of that, then I highly recommend these little books. They're about $10 on Amazon. So you could get it within 2 days if you have Amazon Prime. I have I'm not associated with them. I just really like them. So again, I'm not like affiliated or anything. I don't get any money for endorsing it. I just really like them. So that is my little endorsement on those books. And basically the way the Wheel of the Year is set up is that there are the 4 solar holidays. So there's Yule and Litha, which are the midwinter and midsummer. And they are solar holidays, and then also Ostara and Mabon. Those are the equinoxes. We have the solstices and the equinoxes, and they divide the year into these 4 quadrants. And then we have the fire festivals. So Samhain is one of the fire festivals. Opposite is Bealtaine, and then Imbolg and Lunasa. Those are all of the fire festivals. So the solar festivals are, their dates change slightly each year. For example, Mabon was on the 21st this year of September, but next year it's going to be on the 23rd. And that's just based on the positioning of the sun. So those ones change a little bit each year, but the fire festivals are pretty consistent. They're always pretty much on the same day. Bealtaine and Lunasa are both on the 1st, May 1st and August 1st, respectively. And then Samhain is the evening between the 31st and the 1st, October 31st and November 1st. And then Imbolg, I celebrate it on the 2nd. I think that's pretty traditional, but some people celebrate it on the 1st as well, so it really depends. But anyway, we're going to be talking just about Samhain today because that is what's coming up next. And this is the time of year when the veil is thinnest between our physical realm where we live and all of the other realms. So if you believe or if you follow the multiverse theory that there are countless other universes out there and each of them has their own universal laws, natural laws that they follow, this moment is when it's easiest to move between these realms. As if you don't follow that theory, if you're more of there's a spirit realm and a physical realm, then that's perfect too. But basically, there's a veil that separates physical world from all of the other worlds. And on Samhain, it is the thinnest, so it's much easier to pass between realms. Generally, spirits would enter our realm versus the other way because in our realm, our natural laws don't allow passing necessarily through these realms. Of course, if you're interested in astral travel, it's like a form of passing into another realm, but generally it's more in the reverse, that a spirit would enter our realm, or the gods and goddesses can enter our realm much more easily at Samhain. So it's a lot easier to commune with the dead, it's a lot easier to commune with these other beings, magical creatures, etc., etc. And the reason that we celebrate it at the evening of October 31st is because it's also thought that the veil, this same veil, is thinnest between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. every day. But at Samhain, it would be the most thin. So, because throughout the year, this is the thinnest day, and in that witching hour between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., it would be the most thin. So Some people actually celebrate by staying up all night, sitting vigil, lighting candles, and telling ghost stories all night long so that they can experience that moment when the veil is thinnest. But anyway, if that's kind of what this is all about. And again, Veil Tana would be, if you're in the southern hemisphere, that's what you're celebrating. So I guess that would mean that the veil would be the most thick at Veil Tana. I'm not really sure how the veil works. But anyway, this calendar is based on the agricultural calendar. So you might find that if you look at our traditional calendar, Mabon would be the first day of fall, but if you look at the agricultural calendar, then Mabon would actually be the midpoint of fall, and Samhain would mark the beginning of winter rather than the midpoint of fall. So it's kind of shifted a little bit, but that's kind of a different story. I'm just going to talk about Samhain now. So it's the Festival of the Dead, as I mentioned. Oh, hi, Jenny. Hi, Ashley. Oh, yeah, Llewellyn Paul Belshazzar. Thank you for saying that. Hi, Amanda. And, oh yeah, Marilyn got all of the books. That's awesome. You're gonna love them. Okay, so Samhain, it is the Festival of the Dead, as I mentioned. It is also the third harvest. So there are 3 harvest days if you follow the agricultural timing. Lunasa marks the first harvest, so it's kind of that's why it's celebrated as like this time of abundance, because the first harvest yields the most produce. And then Mabon would be the second harvest, and then Samhain is the third harvest, and it is kind of it's just pulling in the last bits of growth from the summer season. So there's not a lot of food that farmers are able to pull in at this time because it's starting to get colder, the days are shorter, there's less sunlight. So the crops aren't really producing as much. This is kind of a last, like, okay, this is the time to do it. We have to get everything that we can, because once winter sets in, we won't have any, we have to make sure that we make it through the winter, because there won't be any new food. So we have to get everything that we can right now. And so that's kind of what Samhain represents, is this day of representing the cycle of death, moving into a time of resting, versus the abundant season of summer before it. So we're transitioning from the summer days into the winter season. So if you think about the earth, instead of having 4 seasons, there's just the summer season and the winter season. Samhain would mark, like, okay, now it's winter. And so that is why it is also called the Witch's New Year, because it's a transition period from that time of abundance, again, into this time of resting and reflection and planning. So our agricultural ancestors would pull in all of their tools, and there's no need to be planting, there's no need to be tending to crops, there's no need to be harvesting crops anymore. It's time to start planning for the next year, reflecting on the past, and also spending time with loved ones in the present. So kind of all 3 of those, the past, present, and the future, looking at what we can learn from the past, making time for what's happening right now in the present, and making plans for the future, for the next growing season, for the next year. So that's kind of why Samhain is considered the Witch's New Year, because it's a time of transitioning. And yeah. I'm going to take a drink of tea. How's everybody doing? Hi, Samantha. Okay. So as modern witches, we are less preoccupied with the agricultural timing of the year. Unless you are a farmer, unless you work in the agricultural industry, you probably don't pay very much attention at all to the agricultural timing of the year, but that doesn't mean that it's any less important. All of these themes are really a good way to look at the world, and I think that's why a lot of witches are drawn to the Wheel of the Year, because it gives you this opportunity to focus on each of these ideas. So, as you go through the year, we have this time of Thanksgiving at Mabon, we have this time of reflection at SOW-win, and then at Yule it's a hopeful feeling as the sun starts to return, and so on and so forth, and we have abundance and all of these other different themes throughout the year. So that's kind of, I think, why a lot of people are drawn to this idea of the Wheel of the Year, because even if we don't necessarily have to think about the world in that way, because we're not growing our own food, we're not trying to survive the winter, most of us generally have access to a grocery store. If you have access to watching me on this live stream, you probably have access to a grocery store as well. So we don't necessarily think about where our food is going to come from or anything like that. But anyway, we still have this connection to all of these different themes throughout the year. So at SOW-win, you might be instinctively or naturally feeling more drawn to your family and friends. That's kind of something I think people start to feel as we go into these colder months of just wanting to be surrounded by our family and friends, and to give thanks and to feel this, to honor the cycle of life and death, and to honor those who have passed before us and all of these different things, because as this period of winter and darkness and coldness in some places is approaching, it brings this joy when you surround yourself with the people that you love. So I kind of look at this time as like harvesting the last remnants of the sun, and just bringing that in and holding on to it for the winter. And that sometimes means like, it sounds weird, but like harvesting the love from my family and friends, so that just by enjoying their presence and just getting that last bit of energy from the sun. So it's a time to take time to remember things that are really important to you, things that are meaningful to you, and also to reflect on our ancestors, honoring our ancestors, and just remember everything that's just really wonderful about life, because when we start thinking about death and about this cycle of living and dying, it's really important to just honor, like, we have this time right now in our lives. So it's just important to recognize how wonderful that is, what a gift that is, to have this life while we're thinking about those who have passed on. So that's all about that. So I'm just checking my notes, making sure I say everything that I wanted to say. But okay, so just to reiterate the times that you can celebrate, it's getting really dark in here. Sorry about that. I guess it's afternoon. Hopefully it's okay. There's nothing I can do about it. Sorry, it's so dark. Anyway, so you can celebrate anytime you want, really. It's not necessarily important to celebrate at the exact moment on October 31st when the veil is the most thin at 2 a.m. I know we all have, jobs and kids and families and things that we need to pay attention to, and some of our lives don't necessarily have room for staying up all night on a Wednesday. I think the 31st is a Wednesday, so it's okay if your life does not make room for that. I'm sure you've heard me say before that really all of these different moments and dates, they are powerful, but that's not where the energy comes from. This whole season, the veil is thin. So if you miss that exact moment, it's okay. You can celebrate. If you do have time, that's awesome. Definitely. More power to you. Stay up all night on the 31st. Really revel in that and enjoy it. But if you don't have time for that, it's totally okay to celebrate at the nearest full moon, which would have been this week. So it's already been missed. But if you thought about it and already did your celebrations, the nearest full moon or the nearest new moon as well, which will be a couple weeks from now. So you might want to wait. You might not want to wait that long. But you could definitely do that. Or I know some people calculate the exact midpoint between Mabon and Yule to figure out what SOW-win should be, and it's not necessarily on the 31st. I did not calculate this, so I don't know which day it is, but you could figure out the exact astronomical midpoint between the equinox and the solstice and celebrate on that day. Some people just celebrate on the nearest weekend, which would be, today, tomorrow, and Sunday. And that's totally fine too. A lot of us have a little bit more time on the weekends. And you can just celebrate however you choose, however it works for you. And I'm going to give you some ideas right now of what you can do. So one thing I really like to do is to take a nature walk at each of the Sabbats, is to go and see how my environment has changed. It's actually really bothering me that it's so dark. So maybe it doesn't bother you, but it really bothers me. So I'm just going to go open this curtain a little bit more, and I'll be right back. Okay. Maybe it was better, since we're talking about Samhain, maybe it's better if I'm a little bit spooky. I should have held a flashlight under my chin. Anyway, I feel like that's a little bit better. I hope you don't mind that I did that. So I'm going to go into what you can do. I already started, but I'm just going to check in on the comments. Oh, thanks, Michelle. My friend got them for me. It's a set of 4. They're little roosters. They say Puerto Vallarta on the back. Vallarta. I don't speak Spanish. I took German in high school. So sorry if I said that really badly. Okay, so you can take a meditative nature walk, which I already started talking about, but I'm just going to make sure that I say everything that I meant to say. So I really like to just go out into my neighborhood and see how the world changes, just even in a couple weeks between each of the Sabbats. So just walking through the trees and seeing how the leaves change. In some places you might have just a few leaves left, or maybe not even any leaves. Some places have already seen snow at this time of year. Here in Florida, it's not changed that much, but the temperature is definitely cooler. So I've noticed that. And then there are periods where the leaves are falling off the trees. So I've actually been seeing some falling leaves, but not as much as I would in other places. So, but anyway, just seeing how the world changes around you, even if it's a small change like it is here, or if it's a really big change, and documenting that and paying attention to it, and just really connecting yourself to your local environment, just right around your home. You might even make a very specific path that you follow every single time you're celebrating one of these holidays, and just keep following that so that you can make a more accurate observation between the differences. And that makes it a little bit more special too, because you're following the same path each time instead of just, your everyday walking path that you might take. So this is just a way to reconnect yourself with nature if you don't get a chance to be out in the natural world very often. Just making sure that you have at least once or 8 times a year that you go out and you pay attention to your world. And while you're out and about, you can collect things from nature to decorate your altar with, bring them back. You can make crafts with these things that you collect. The cutest thing I saw lately was collecting leaves and then using a hole punch to make confetti out of the leaves. I thought that was so cute because it's like biodegradable, so because confetti is the worst. I might have talked about this in the Mad one because I thought that was such a good idea. So if I already told you about this, you'll just know that that's how excited I am about it. I think it's such a cute idea to make confetti out of leaves. But yeah, you can collect things, use them for crafts, use them to decorate your altar. At this time of year, all of the leaves are good things to collect because they're really colorful and beautiful. In some places, they might have already dried up, so it might not be a good time to collect leaves. It really depends on where you are. But acorns are falling. Bare branches are really nice to collect. You can find some really cool, interesting looking branches. You might even make one into a wand of some kind. Berries, juniper berries. There's a bunch of really pretty like holly berries and things like that as well at this time of year. It might be a little bit too late for like rose hips, but that's the general idea, that all of the flowers are pretty much gone in most places, and you can start collecting the fruits of the plants. I'm seeing some comments, so I'm just gonna check in. Carla says the leaf the tea leaf confetti is so cute. Definitely. I'm glad you like that one. Samantha, I can't read the whole thing. I'm sorry. Let me see. Anyone who likes confetti doesn't have to clean up after the confetti of children eating every single meal. Yes, exactly. Anyone who likes confetti doesn't have to deal with the mess. It's also really bad for the environment. So generally, if you can avoid it, definitely avoid it. But some other ideas for your altar, all of these different things that you've collected on your meditative walk, but you might find some skulls and things like that of animals, maybe wild animals in your area, or you can get like plastic skulls or glass skulls and things like that, skeletons. I've done grave rubbings before where you take like a crayon and a piece of paper and you rub the name, or you rub over the gravestone with it, and so I'm sure you know what rubbings are, but that's basically what it is, where you get an imprint of what the gravestone says, and you can bring that back to your altar, especially if this is somebody that you know and it's a gravestone that you are a carer of. And you can bring that back as a way to help you to remember that ancestor. But that's another idea, is to do rubbings of graves. But you can also do somebody that you don't know. This is called adopting an ancestor. If you go to a grave site, and I'm going to talk about this more later, but maybe I'll just talk about it now. If you go to a grave site, if you see a gravestone that looks like it's not been cleaned or visited, you can, if you feel comfortable, you can take that on. You can become the caregiver of that gravesite and take that person on as your own ancestor, because maybe all of their descendants have either moved away or there are no more left. And so this is a way that you can continue to remember that person, and they can continue to exist in this realm because you have taken on that task of remembering them. So that's a really nice thing to do if you feel called to do so. You can adopt an ancestor. But you can also collect, or you can put things like pumpkins and other gourds, all of these different produce from this time of year, squash and that kind of thing. Root vegetables you can use to decorate your altar. Any nuts or berries, dark breads if you want to, as kind of like an offering. A cornucopia is something that represents abundance of the fruits and the vegetables that would have been harvested. You can do things like mulled wine and cider. So these are all kind of like offering type things. You wouldn't want to leave them out for too long in terms of it getting old or moldy or anything like that. But you can set it out at some point as a way to honor the season. And just anything that brings joy to your heart. Whatever you want to put out that you want to see on your altar is a good thing to put out. Candles. You could change the coloring of your altar, so you could have like blacks and purples and oranges and gray and brown, all of these kind of darker colors that remind us of this season. And you can do candles and cloths and ribbons and things like that. So anyway, there's tons of ideas. And I think we've seen a few in the group that people have shared. So before I move on, I'm going to check in on the comments. Carla said, not sure why I said tea. I must need some. Haha, you probably do. There's always time for tea. I think it was probably just one of those slips. Also, I was drinking tea. Maybe that's why you said it. Heidi says, some of the designs on really old gravestones are really interesting. Yeah, that's true too. You can rub over the designs and use that as something that you would use to decorate. You can frame it or turn it into a pattern for a cross stitch or for crochet or anything like that and make a beautiful thing. And Heidi said something else that I can't read because it is too long on my phone. It says, we have several adopted ancestors. They are usually marked as perpetual care, which means the cemetery people mow once in a while. Yeah, so that's a good point. That's a good way to know if it's a grave site that needs somebody to care for it, because usually the cemetery will have some sort of indication, and in this case, perpetual care. So perfect. Thanks for sharing that. So the next tip I have is sort of the same as the other one, the setting up your altar. You can do a separate altar, or you can combine this type of altar with your usual altar, but some sort of representation of all of your ancestors and your lost loved ones. So setting up, Samhain is kind of like a party for the living and also a party for the dead. I like to think about it, if you've seen that movie, Mulan, the Disney movie, there's the scene where all of her, I think it's just the very end scene, the end credits, where all of her ancestors are just really excited that she's so awesome, that Mulan's so awesome. And they're all these spirits visiting her, and they're just having a good time. That's kind of what I like to see Samhain as. It's just like all of your loved ones gathering together, and they all have their funny little quirks and their different, some of them are like mad at each other because they were fighting in their life, or maybe they got into a fight after they passed on. But that's sort of what I see Samhain as just this time of like, it's a party to celebrate the life we have right now, but also the life of the people that have left us. And so you can set up an altar to represent the people who have left, maybe with pictures of them that you have, if you have any pictures, especially if you have pictures of you with them in the picture to help you to remember. Sorry, my throat's getting a little sore, so I'm going to take a drink of tea. But setting, and again, this can be part of your regular altar, or it could be a separate thing that you set up special for Samhain. And you can use pictures of people that you actually knew, or you can find pictures of people that are your ancestors, but maybe you never met. They passed on before you knew them, or before you were even born. And you can even find, again, the adopting an ancestor. If you go to Goodwill, there's oftentimes frames with pictures already in them. And so you can use, especially if they're really old pictures, you can set up just random pictures of people and come up with a story of who they were when they were alive and all sorts of things. And that can be kind of a nice thing to do to keep the memory of people alive. So, yeah, you can set up a separate altar and combine it with your regular altar. Christina says that she's putting your dog ashes up there. I'm so sorry about your dog's passing, but it's a good time to remember how lovely it was to have your dog around and to commune with her again, or him. So, perfect. Now we're going to talk about the next tip, which is pumpkins. So we think of Halloween and the jack-o'-lanterns that we carve. It's getting so dark again. It's because it's raining. That's what the difference in season is here in Florida. It's raining or not raining. But pumpkins, in the olden days, before, when we were more afraid of the things that go bump in the night, well, I guess some of us are still really afraid of spooky things, like me. But in the olden days, before there was electricity, especially before there were street lamps, before we had flashlights and things like that to light our way at night, our ancestors carved root vegetables and like potatoes and yams into lanterns. And sometimes they would carve faces into them as well, as a scary face to scare away the fae and the spirits and the goblins when they were visiting their neighbors or when they were walking home at night. And in Gaelic tradition, they actually used turnips instead of, which are root vegetables as well, but not potatoes or yams. And again, they would use these scary faces as a way to scare away the undead, and any low vibration spirits especially. So that's kind of key. It's not to scare away the friendly spirits that we want to visit, our ancestors and all of that. It's the ones that slip through that are maybe not so friendly, and that come through when the veil is thin. So over the decades and the centuries, this evolved into the modern jack-o'-lantern, and now we carve our pumpkins, which are a little bit more durable. They stand up a little bit better than a carved potato would, so they last a lot longer. And you can place them outside your house as jack-o'-lanterns with a candle inside to scare off the spirits that you don't want to visit. But also pumpkins represent luck and divination, so they're a really good thing to have around inside your home. Maybe you can get those little ones, the cute little pumpkins. I should have brought mine over. It's over there. But you can get those cute little pumpkins and set them around your house that's a nice thing to have around that is for luck and divination. And I'm going to check in on the comments before I move on. Amanda says, I have a permanent altar for my past loved ones in my living room. So that's really nice too. You don't just have to set up your ancestral altar at Samhain. You don't have to only think about your ancestors at this time of year. That's perfect, Amanda. You can think about them all the time. I really like that. And Heidi says, me too. So I guess this is a common thing. Ashley says, I've seen pictures of carved turnips and they are funny and hideous looking. Totally agree. It's like, why did you think that this is a good idea? Pumpkins are obviously a way better choice. It's probably because they didn't have pumpkins the way we have pumpkins now. Ours are like Mondo pumpkins because of genetic engineering, but that's another story. So, I think Ashley showed a picture. I'm going to have to check that out later. I want to look at these turnips. Hi, Angie. Thanks for coming. We're just talking about Samhain. Okay. So, another thing to do, as I mentioned earlier, is to kind of like sit vigil, stay up all night, on the night of the 31st, and light candles for your ancestors, bring them little goodies, things that they enjoyed when they were living. So if they had a specific kind of candy that they liked, leave that out for them. Or if they really enjoyed a specific thing that you would make for them, that's a really good thing to leave out. And then maybe at dinner that night, set a place for them at the table, and have them visit you while you're eating dinner, and anything that would represent the cycle of life, you could set that out for them. And when it comes to offerings, there's all sorts of different ways that you can dispose of them. It's really up to you however you want to do this, but it's totally okay to just throw it out if you don't want to save it. You can put it in your compost pile. Someone can eat it. It's totally okay if someone eats the offering. Just set it out for a respectable amount of time so that your loved ones can come and enjoy it. Obviously, they live in a different realm, so they do not necessarily eat things physically like we do. So they've come and they've enjoyed it, but they still leave the physical product there. So, and then when you sit vigil, when you're hanging out, during this time, it's a good time to like reflect on them when they were living, whether you knew them or not. Again, this is where you might come up with stories about these people that maybe you never knew. Try to figure out what their life might have been like based on when they lived. Meditate on them, and talk to your living relatives and friends about people that have left. And then, and it's okay to tell stories that are sorrowful, tell stories that are joyful as well, but it's definitely okay to remember the sadness, and to remember the sad things. So, whatever stories come to mind, feel free to just really explore whatever's coming up, whatever emotions are coming up, and let them go. But since this is the Witch's New Year, it's a time for life and growth as well. This is the last time. This is like, as I mentioned earlier, this is like the last remnants of the sun. So this is the last little bits of life and growth in the natural world, as winter comes and we kind of think about the idea of death and what that really means. But recognizing the value of that cycle, recognizing the value of things dying off, and how that creates space for new life later. Because remember, again, this is the Witch's New Year, so we're letting go of things and making room for new things in the same way that the natural world lets things die off and makes room for new growth in the spring. So even though we are entering this like cold period, and there's a lot of kind of fear associated with that in some ways, especially for our ancestors. There was an uncertainty associated with winter, whether or not there would be enough food to last, and all of these different things, whether they would be warm enough. But making room for remembering that the sun will return. That was kind of the idea of it, that the sun will return. We just need to get through this hardship and all of that. So let me just check my notes again. I'll check in on the comments too. I guess Samantha saw the scary turnips. She says, those are scary. Hi, Cinnamon, good to see you. And Amanda says, I bury my offerings. Perfect. So you can, that's a great way to dispose of them as well. Bury them, throw them away, eat them yourself, however you want to do it. Love it. Okay. So, yeah, just remembering that we have this place in nature, and sometimes we become sick, sometimes we are healthy, sometimes we become imbalanced, sometimes we can think really clearly, all of these different things. There's cycles of health and sickness. There's cycles of clarity and confusion, and Samhain kind of represents that as well, just the uncertainty, but also the potential for clarity and all of that. So it's a good time to remember where we belong in nature and think about the people who came before us and the people who will come after us and where we are right now. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is a divination, which is kind of fun. This is a really good time for divination because as the veil thins and there's more transit of spirits between our realm and their realm, that means that there's more probability that you'll encounter messages from the spirits, from the gods, from the divine, whatever it is that you believe in. So our intuition and our psychic abilities really kick in. They peak at this time because there is more chance for those messages to come through. So this is a really good time if you're just starting out learning different methods of divination like the tarot or using the runes or scrying or using pendulums or practicing reading tea leaves or anything that you are interested in as far as divination goes. You can even get out a magic 8-ball if you want. And I know at SOW-wins in the past, my friends and I have come up with new methods of divination. So that can be really fun as well. It's just coming up with new messages or new ways to read these divine communications. So this is a really good time to practice and to learn new methods or to develop your abilities and all of that stuff. So really dig into your divination studies if you haven't already. And again, this is a good time for storytelling. I mentioned that in some of the other tips, but gathering with your friends and sharing stories of the past and all of your relatives, especially those who have passed on, but also telling like the ghost stories that you used to tell when you were a kid at a campfire, or maybe you still tell as an adult. But I also like to have like a magical movie marathon at this time because that's another form of storytelling. So I know a lot of people really like to have like scary movie marathons at this time of year, and that's fine too. I'm not into scary movies, so I watch magical movies like Practical Magic and things like that. So I'll share my list of magic movies in the comments, and you should feel free to as well. I hope that you all share your favorite magic movies or scary movies, but make sure you give warning if it's a scary movie because I won't be able to watch it. Okay, so then again, I have a few more ideas. I already talked about this a little bit. This is an act of service section of my ideas. So cleaning off grave sites. If you feel like you want to give back to your community, go to the cemeteries. Most communities have a local cemetery. Rural areas maybe have fewer than urban areas, but visit it, walk around if it feels right to you, clean off the overgrowth from the graves that don't seem like they've been tended to. Try to imagine the lives of the people who are buried there. Leave an offering if you would like to. something I like to do when I go to cemeteries is to find the very oldest gravestone. It's just kind of like a seeking type of activity that I like to do. So you might want to do that as well, just to see how long that cemetery has been there, who that person was, and all of that. And then another thing to do if you feel like you want to give back at this time of year is to volunteer at a nursing home. So with some of our elderly people in our communities, especially those who live in nursing homes, they might not have chances to talk to people. And they have all of these really amazing stories. So go to a nursing home just to talk to people, just to hear their stories, find out how they celebrated Halloween, or even Samhain. Some of them maybe celebrated Samhain. So, and also if you have elderly neighbors as well, see if they need any help in whatever way. This time of year can be really challenging for people with disabilities and also people who are older. There's a lot of yard work to do, raking leaves and taking care of the plants that are dying off. So if you have any elderly neighbors who need some help, that's a good idea as well. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is more to do with Halloween. So if you don't have kids come to your house for trick-or-treating, then you don't have to listen to this part. But I wanted to share some ideas or things to give away at Halloween that aren't candy. We think about trick-or-treating and the treat part being something sweet or some sort of candy. That's just kind of what our culture has come to do. But that's not really what a treat is. A treat is anything that brings pleasure. And so if you want to give out candy, of course, do that. If you don't want to be the weird house that gives out, like, not candy, then that's totally fine. You can continue to give out candy. But I just wanted to give some ideas of things that don't add to the pile of sugar that kids are eating at this time of year. So, or if you want to just do something differently, if you want to start a new tradition, be kind of the messenger of a new tradition that isn't candy, then these are some ideas. So first thing I thought of is a story scroll. Actually, I got all of these ideas from this book, so I did not think of them. But making a story scroll, print out the story of Halloween and the origins of all of these different traditions onto, do several different ones on a page and then cut them out and roll them up into a little scroll and tie it with a ribbon, pass that out, share the story of Halloween, where these traditions come from. You can make origami fortune cookies where, oh shoot, I was going to make one of those and I forgot. Basically, if you know what a fortune cookie is, it's a cookie that has a fortune inside. It's pretty self-explanatory. But a paper fortune cookie is one of those made out of paper, and you put a fortune inside, and it can be like a fun fact, or it could be a fortune. You know what a fortune cookie is. Whatever you would find in a fortune cookie, put something like that in there. And you can add to the SOW-win tradition of divination without adding sugar. And then this other idea is to make these cootie catchers. If you remember these from like middle school, you put numbers on the outside, and then on the inside you put more numbers. And if this one was 1 and someone picked 1, you'd go 1. Or if they picked 4, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you'd pick a new number and you'd do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then they'd pick another number and you would open it up, and on the inside there would be a fortune. So you can pass those out. They take a little bit of time to make. All of these do. But you can make them when you're watching your movie marathon. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. You could also make homemade crayons. If you have a bunch of kids or grandkids running around, you probably have a bunch of little nubbins of crayons. And you can peel off all the paper from them and put them inside a silicone mold, especially if it's a Halloween themed silicone mold with like bats and witch hats and things like that. And then melt it you put the silicone mold on a cookie sheet, and then you put it in your oven at the lowest temperature, and the wax melts, and it becomes this one solid rainbow colored crayon. You can pass those out, which is really fun. And then Neil Gaiman in 2010, he recommended that he had this proposal that instead of giving out candy at Halloween, people give out books So I thought that was a really cool idea, and I want to do that when I have a house. I haven't lived anywhere that has trick-or-treaters in a long time, but when I have a place where there are trick-or-treaters, I plan to give out books. And you can go to thrift stores, you can go to garage sales, and usually you can find books for like $1 or less. And a lot of times you can get a bulk discount from the manager. If you can talk to the manager, they might give you a bulk discount to buy out all the children's book or all the young adult fictions and all that. So I think that's a really awesome idea. Christina says not pennies. Okay, not pennies. So that's all I have. Again, if you want to give out candy, that's totally fine. I know that I really enjoy giving out the candy because there is leftover candy that I get to eat. So I'm not saying you shouldn't give out candy, but if you wanted some other ideas or if you wanted some crafts ideas to try, then that's what I have for you. So that's everything. Thank you all for watching and coming to hang out this afternoon or morning or wherever it is in your neck of the woods. Don't forget that next week is the start of the Enwitching Challenge. So it starts, there's a live session on Thursday, and then there's a live session on Friday. So that's going to be 2 live sessions next week, which is really fun. I am hoping that I have time to finish a video for every single day. They won't all be live sessions. They'll be, some will be pre-recorded that I'll just upload, and so that's fine too though. But I'm hoping I can get a video out for each day. I'm still planning on doing a weekly live session as I have for the past couple of months. With the exception of the week of Thanksgiving, my parents will be in town, and Friday is his fiance's birthday. So that week I won't have time to do a live session, but there'll still be prompts throughout that week. And if I feel ambitious, I might be able to do 2 live sessions every week. So we'll see. But I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be really fun. Some ideas of things that you might not have talked about yet or thought about in your practice. So that's all. I'm going to just check the comments. Everyone's saying, thank you, awesome, thanks for coming. I'm going to go off live, but feel free to hang out and comment if you have anything else to add. Thanks, everybody. Love you. Bye.